hurricane, sweeping up the Atlantic coast at the rate of 75 miles an hour, struck about 2:30, taking the entire city and all of the suburbs to its wanton will for a period of 4 hours.
First of all, I will try to relate my own personal experience. It was ghastly. When I came back to the store after lunch, the wind began to blow very hard, and the waters in the back of the store looked very angry. All of a sudden, there was a terrific crash, and we felt our building giving way. There was a car parked in front of our doorway, and we could see that it was being demolished by bricks. We realized that our building was going, and panic seized us. We couldn't get out the front way as the bricks were piled in the doorway. It was an awful feeling. Mr. Kaplan screamed to us, "Leave everything and run to the cellar."
I was walking home from school on that day, and it was just like this. It was beautiful. I got down by Whiten's Machine Company on Howard Street, and all of a sudden it got so dark, and then the rain started to come, and then the wind, and it took me a long time. I thought I'd never get home. And then we had an elderly couple, Mr. and Mrs. Pearson, that lived upstairs, and they were terrified, so we all ran up to her because the water was coming right to the door level at the porch. And from then we just huddled together and all that, just praying.
It got very dark, and the rain started and the wind started, and we said, "Oh," and the kids said, "Well, we don't want to go home in the rain," because no one had raincoats, so they decided they would stay. And then the wind got worse and worse, and some of the trees started to fall. Then the lights went out, and we were stuck in the school with maybe 12 or 14 kids. But we did have sense enough to stay there.
Principal was taking and sort of by the arm, as they were several lined up. One at a time she would open the door, and these were the biggest kids, so I'm sure they were 8th graders at that time. Opening the door and saying, "Run for it," and letting them shoot on out the door.
People at school decided they were going to dismiss, close up school earlier than usual. So that's when I started walking home by myself in this weather. I realized that things were flying through the air, and I was able to stop in a neighbor's house, which was across the street from where we lived over there. And my father found me there. He said that he'd been looking for me. He thought he was going to find me pinned under a tree somewhere, because he had seen so many trees down.
The next thing I remember was sitting in the living room, and I know it was that because we were behind a great big stuffed chair, and my mother was on the floor with me. My father went out of the room into the back of the house, and suddenly he came running in, and he just shouted, "Here it comes." I just always remembered those, "Here it comes." I know, of course, he was talking about the tidal wave. I do know that I recall very much his going down the front steps with me, and that the street was totally flooded. We certainly, before we hit the end of the bottom step, we were wading in water.
And then it got really scary.